Family dinner. Her husband's bestie plopped himself down in the seat of honor, right in front of the whole family. He pointed at me and said, "A grown man, stuck at home raising kids. How pathetic."
My wife smiled.
Didn't say a word.
I was about to open my mouth. My mother-in-law grabbed an unopened bottle of baijiu and smashed it down with a deafening crack. Then she turned to my wife and said 2 words, "Divorce, only."
Who exactly was she talking about?
Pei Yunheng felt that something about this meal was off from the very first second, a strange, inexplicable wrongness that clung to the air like smoke. 12 dishes sat on the round table. Braised fish head, sweet and sour ribs, garlic oysters, blanched prawns. The cook at the Su family's old estate knew their craft. Every dish steamed with heat, glistening with oil. He sat by the door. To his left was his daughter Pei Tangtang's high chair. The little girl was poking at a shrimp with her spoon poke. The shrimp slid away. Poke again, slid away again. To his right, an empty seat, the seat of honor. Su Nianyo stood at the entrance greeting guests, wearing a sharply tailored black dress and 8-centimeter stiletto heels. Her smile was polished. Her voice was polished too.
Yifan, you're here!
Come in. Come in.
Pei Yunheng looked up. A man stood in the doorway.
1.78 meters.
A watch peeked out from his suit cuff. Pei Yunheng recognized the dial. A Patek Philippe Nautilus, steel case. Maybe 500,000 or 600,000.
Not exactly expensive. But on this man's wrist, paired with his slightly raised chin and those eyes practically oozing self-satisfaction, it radiated a distinctly grating energy. Song Yifan, Su Nianyao's college classmate, self-proclaimed bestie. 3 years ago, when Pei Yunheng had just stepped down from his career to raise their daughter, this man was still a sales manager at a small company, had spoken to Pei Yunheng with careful, fawning deference. 3 years later, had transformed into the vice president of some listed company reportedly through some connection or other, and now he walked like he owned the wind itself. Well, Yunheng's here too.
Song Yifan patted Pei Yunheng's shoulder with a smile.
The force was carefully calibrated. Not too hard, not too soft, landing exactly in that nauseating space between friendly and condescending. Pei Yunheng didn't move. Song Yifan scanned the table, walked straight to the seat of honor, and sat down. Su Nianyao's father, Su Jianguo, sat nearby. The hand holding his teacup paused for a beat. His lips moved but no words came out. Su Nianyao's mother, Huo Jinlan, was setting out bowls and chopsticks. She glanced up at Song Yifan, her hands freezing for 2 seconds, then continued.
No one said a word.
Pei Yunheng looked down, peeled the shell off a shrimp for his daughter, tore it in half and placed it in her bowl. "Daddy, is this shrimpy yummy?" Pei Tang tilted her head up. "Yummy. Eat up."
You eat too.
The little girl scooped up half a shrimp with her spoon and wobbled it toward Pei Yunheng's mouth. Pei Yunheng leaned down, ate it, chewed twice, and smiled. Song Yifan settled into the seat of honor, pulled out his phone, glanced at it, then swept his gaze over Pei Yunheng with a smile still hanging on his lips. There was something in that look that Pei Yunheng recognized all too well. Pity.
One adult's pity for another adult.
Probably one of the most disgusting expressions in the world.
All right, let's eat.
Su Nianyao clapped her hands. Today's just a casual family meal. Yifan, don't be shy.
Shy?
With you?
Song Yifan picked up his chopsticks and grabbed a rib.
Nianyao, you've really leveled up these past few years.
I heard your project doubled its profits last quarter.
Su Nianyao smiled and raised her wine glass.
Not bad.
Got lucky.
Luck, that's talent.
Song. Yifan's tone was sincere. Then he shifted gears, his gaze drifting toward Pei Yunheng.
Oh, right, Yunheng.
You're still home with the kid? Pei Yunheng was wiping sauce off Tang's mouth. He acknowledged. Song Yifan smiled. That kind of smile, Pei Yunheng had seen it many times, in all sorts of settings on all sorts of faces. Translated into plain language, the subtext was, "You're done.
You're washed up."
This is your life now.
Hey, no judgment. Everyone says men should stay home these days, right?
Song Yifan's words were smooth, but his voice deliberately rose a notch, ensuring every person at the table heard him clearly. Su Jianguo set down his teacup and cleared his throat.
Huo Jinlan's chopsticks clicked lightly against the table.
But seriously, Song Yifan tossed a peanut into his mouth and chewed twice. Yunheng, don't you think you should think about Nianyao for a change?
She's out there busting her ass, and you, a grown man stuck at home with a kid.
People talk. He shook his head. The amplitude of that shake was precise to the millimeter, just enough not to make Su Nianyao feel like he was insulting her husband, but exactly enough for everyone to register his contempt.
How pathetic.
4 words. The table went silent for a beat. Pei Tang Tang tilted her head, the shrimp still in her mouth, her big eyes darting back and forth between Song Yifan and Pei Yunheng. Su Jiangguo's face darkened. He opened his mouth to say something. Su Nianyao spoke first. She smiled. That smile, Pei Yunheng knew it intimately. Corners of the mouth up 15 degrees. Eyes slightly curved.
No rebuttal, no agreement.
It just hung there on her face like a shield, hiding every position she held behind it.
Yifan, that's enough.
Yunheng works hard at home too. The words floated out weightlessly, like commenting on the weather. The hand Pei Yunheng was using to serve Tang Tang stopped. He looked up at Su Nianyao. She wasn't looking at him. Song Yifan laughed twice.
All right, it'll stop.
I just feel bad for Nianyao, that's all. Don't take it personally, Yunheng. I'm a straight shooter. Pei Yunheng's lips moved. He was about to speak. Bang. A thunderous crack. Every spine at the table jolted with an electric current. Huo Jinlin had stood up at some point. In her hand, she gripped an unopened bottle of baijiu, a 52-degree flying fairy mute. Its milky white bottle still bearing the anti-counterfeit label bottle bottom aimed down, and slammed it into the back of Song Yifan's head. The bottle didn't break, but Song Yifan did. His whole body pitched forward, forehead cracking against the table's edge with a dull thud. Then his body tilted sideways, slid off the chair, and collapsed onto the floor, the back of his suit soaked with a puddle of something. No, that was soup. No one moved. Su Jiangguo's hand hung frozen midair, teacup in it. Su Nianyao's wine glass nearly slipped from her fingers. Pei Tang Tang's mouth formed a perfect O, the shrimp tumbling out of her lips. The air in the room hit pause. Huo Jinlin shook out her hand. That bottle had done a number on her wrist too. Then she looked down at Song Yifan, crumpled on the floor. Then she lifted her gaze to Su Nianyao. Nianyao. Mom, divorce him.
Su Nianyao's breath caught mid-inhale.
Her face froze, like a frame stuck on pause. The air around them turned solid. Huo Jinlin's voice wasn't loud, but every word landed like a nail, hammered one by one into the floorboards. My daughter can stay unmarried for the rest of her life before she stays with a man who has no backbone. Pei Yunheng froze. His first thought, and everyone else's too, was, wait, is she talking about me? Su Nianyao's face went white. Mom, what are you saying? But Huo Jinlin's gaze never once drifted toward Pei Yunheng. Her eyes stayed locked on her daughter's face. Su Nianyao's white flushed to red, then from red to purple, like someone had knocked over a paint palette. Pei Yunheng's brain took 2 full seconds to catch up.
Hold on.
A man who has no backbone. When his mother-in-law said that, she was looking at Su Nianyao. So this you... Who? He instinctively glanced down at Song Yifan on the floor. Song Yifan was clutching the back of his head, face twisted in pain, teeth bared. The bottle had rolled 3 full circles across the floor before finally wobbling to a stop. Pei Tang Tang pointed at Song Yifan.
Daddy, that uncle is leaking ketchup.
That's not ketchup, Pei Yunheng corrected on reflex, then shut his mouth. Now was not the time for ketchup. Huo Jinlin turned and walked straight over to Pei Yunheng. She didn't look at Song Yifan sprawled on the ground. She didn't acknowledge Su Nianyao's panicked face. She looked at Pei Yunheng, and her voice was so calm it was almost unsettling.
Yunheng,
pick up Tang Tang.
Come with me. Huo Jinlin had 2 rules she lived by her whole life.
First, she didn't raise her hand easily.
Second, once she didn't explain herself.
So as Pei Yunheng carried Tang Tang and followed his mother-in-law out the door, all he heard behind them was Su Nianyao's voice.
Mom.
What do you mean by this?
You need to explain yourself.
Mom, don't walk away. Huo Jinlin didn't look back. She wore a pair of flat cloth shoes, stepping across the blue brick floor of the Su family's old courtyard, her stride as measured as if it had been calibrated. Pei Yunheng followed with Tang Tang in his arms, his mind still chewing through what had just happened. Tang Tang rested her chin on his shoulder, little fingers gripping his collar, and whispered in his ear, Daddy, is Grandma mad?
Yeah.
At who? Pei Yunheng paused for 2 seconds. Don't talk right now.
Oh.
Tang Tang obediently buried her face in his neck, then popped back up 3 seconds later.
So that Uncle Grandma hit, is he a bad guy?
You guess.
I guess yes.
He said, Daddy has no future, and Grandma didn't like that. The corner of Pei Yunheng's mouth twitched.
A 4-year-old saw more clearly than the whole table of adults.
They reached the front gate. Huo Jinlin's car was parked by the flower bed, a 6-year-old Toyota Camry, with a scratch on the rear bumper, reportedly from backing into something last year. Huo Jinlin opened the back door. Get in. Pei Yunheng buckled Tang Tang into the car seat. clicking the harness into place. He walked around to the passenger side, opened the door, but didn't get in right away. Mom! Huo Jinlin was in the middle of buckling her seatbelt. Her hand paused.
What you said back there in the car?
Pei Yunheng sat down and shut the door. The Camry's engine hummed to life, and the car eased backward out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, Su Nianyao came running out the front door, standing at the gate, mouth opening and closing, shouting something he couldn't make out. Song Yifan stumbled out too, right hand pressed to the back of his head, left hand pointing at the Camry, saying something to Su Nianyao, his face twisted into an exaggerated mask of indignation. Huo Jinlin glanced at the rearview mirror and pressed the accelerator a fraction deeper. The car pulled out of the alley and turned onto the main road. Pei Yunheng leaned back in his seat and turned his head to study his mother-in-law's profile. Huo Jinlan was 53. Her hair was dyed black, but a few white strands at her temples had escaped the touch-up. Her jawline was sharp, fine lines etched at the corners of her eyes, but those eyes, Pei Yunheng had known her for 7 years, had always been clear.
Mom.
When you said a man who has no backbone, who were you talking about?
Huo Jinlin tapped her fingers on the steering wheel twice. What do you think? When I first heard it, I thought you meant me. Do you think you have no backbone? Pei Yunheng didn't answer.
Huo Jinlin turned the car onto a tree-lined road and slowed down.
I was talking about Nianyao. Pei Yunheng's breathing shifted by half a beat. She's a woman. She's your wife. Huo Jinlin's voice wasn't loud, but every word landed with weight. A man humiliated her husband in front of her entire family, and she smiled.
She didn't say a word in your defense.
Yunheng, you tell me, what do you call that?
In the back seat, Tang Tang sat quietly clutching her little bunny plush, ears perked. Pei Yunheng didn't answer. It's not that I think you're a failure. Huo Jinlan said, it's that I'm disappointed in my daughter for not fighting for you. Her right hand let go of the steering wheel and slapped once against her thigh, like she was brushing something off. That Song guy, what is he anyway? Chased after Nianyao in college, didn't get her. Then after graduation decided he was her guy best friend, showing up every other day. I'm not blind. The way he looks at Nianyao, he might as well be drooling on the floor. Pei Yunheng's fingers curled slightly against his knee. Nianyao kept him at arm's length but never cut him off.
I've put up with it for 2 years.
Huo Jinlan's voice leveled out, as flat as a weather report. Today he sat at the head of the table, and Nianyao said nothing. He insulted you, and Nianyao said nothing. You're my son-in-law, you're not perfect, but I know exactly what you've done these past 3 years. She paused. Yunheng, what you gave up back then, does Nianyao know? Pei Yunheng's lips moved. She doesn't.
You plan to keep it from her forever?
Not keeping it from her. Pei Yunheng's tone went quiet, like fog settling over a field. It's just not worth saying. Huo Jinlan pressed the brake. The car stopped at a red light. She turned her head and stared at Pei Yunheng for 3 full seconds. I've been married before. I know what a man's hands look like,
she said.
Your hands. I felt them last time I held Tang Tang.
Those calluses on your palms weren't worn in by washing dishes and mopping floors. Pei Yunheng's left hand clenched involuntarily. I won't ask what you used to do, but the fact that you were willing to give all that up for Tang Tang and Nianyao, to stay home for 3 years playing the good-for-nothing husband, in my eyes, that makes you 10,000 times better than that Song Yifan strutting around with his $1 million salary. The light turned green. Huo Jinlan drove through the intersection, her tone settling back into its usual calm. So when I say divorce, it's not because I'm disappointed in you. It's because Nianyao doesn't deserve you. The back seat went quiet for a moment. Then Tang Tang piped up out of nowhere. Grandma, so who's daddy going to live with? Huo Jinlan glanced at her granddaughter in the rearview mirror. With Grandma.
And Mommy?
Your mother can go wherever she wants.
Tang Tang tilted her head, thinking it over. But Mommy can't cook.
Then shall learn.
Mommy burned a hole through the pan last time she tried to fry an egg. Pei Yunheng's mouth twitched. Huo Jinlan's mouth twitched too. Serves her right. The car turned into a residential complex. Pei Yunheng glanced out the window. This wasn't the direction of the Su family's old estate, nor was it the apartment he and Su Nianyao shared. This was Huo Jinlan's own place. A modest 2-bedroom, 90 square meters, bought with her retirement savings. Shed never asked anyone for help, never involved anyone else, just her own home. You two are staying here tonight. Huo Jinlan pulled the keys from the ignition. The bedding in the guest room was aired out last week. It's clean. Pei Yunheng carried Tang Tang out of the car. His phone buzzed 17 times in his pocket. He pulled it out. Su Nianyao had called 9 times and sent 8 WeChat messages. The last one read, Pei Yunheng, call me back. Has my mother lost her mind? He stared at the screen for 2 seconds, then turned it face down on his thigh. Tang Tang yawned in his arms. Daddy, I didn't finish my shrimp.
I'll make you some tomorrow. Okay.
He carried his daughter into the building, Huo Jinlin, pressing the elevator button ahead of them. As the doors slid open, Pei Yunheng's phone buzzed again. Not Su Nianyao, a number he hadn't dialed in 3 years.
The name on the screen, Ji Heng.
He didn't answer. The doors closed, carrying them upward. Pei Yunheng was woken by his phone at 2 in the morning. Tang Tang was asleep on his right, her little fingers curled around the hem of his shirt, her breathing soft and steady. He fumbled for the phone in the dark, squinting against the harsh glare of the screen. WeChat messages from Ji Heng 23 unread, sent from 8 in the evening all the way to 1:47 a.m. The first few were normal enough. Heng, there's something.
Heng?
You're not looking at your phone.
Then they started to go off the rails. If you're dead, wiggle a finger. I'm about to get on my knees here. Just give me a sign. The last one was a voice message. 37 seconds. Pei Yunheng slipped out of bed as quietly as he could, padded to the living room balcony, slid the door shut, and held the phone to his ear. Ji Heng's voice came through, hoarse from a sleepless night. Heng Ji, something's happened at the group. That old bastard Liu from Dongsheng Real Estate has teamed up with 3 investment firms to put together a takeover plan. They're trying to swallow the Pei Group's northern commercial land parcels. The contract's already been submitted to the board. I've been stalling for 3 days, but I can't hold it any longer.
If you don't step in, I'm going to have to pack my bags and run.
Pei Yunheng gripped the phone, leaning against the balcony railing, and let out a slow breath. 3 years, he thought, had tied everything up cleanly. Pei's Hengchuang had started from nothing at 26, reached the top 3 in the industry by 30, and taken the company public at 32. Core commercial real estate across 14 provinces, 2 listed subsidiaries, 7 fund portfolios, all of it built with his own hands. At 33, Tang Tang was born.
Su Nianyo had just been promoted to mid-level management, ambitious as ever, and Shed said to him, I want to focus on my career.
Can you stay home and take care of the kid more? She had no idea what staying home with the kid meant to him. Pei Yunheng handed his entire empire to Ji Heng, signing a full power of attorney. He vanished from every public appearance, deleted his social media, even had his name removed from the company website. He became the stay-at-home husband in Su Nianyao's narrative. Su Nianyao didn't know. Su Jianguo didn't know. Song Yifan certainly didn't know. Only 2 people knew, Ji Heng and Huo Jinlin. How Huo Jinlin had found out, Pei Yunheng still couldn't figure out to this day. All he remembered was last year's Mid-Autumn Festival, when Tang Tang was building blocks in the living room and Huo Jinlin called him into the kitchen. She was washing dishes with her back to him, when out of nowhere she said, Heng Trang Capital. It's yours, isn't it? The dishcloth slipped from Pei Yunheng's hand.
Don't be nervous.
I won't tell Nian Yao.
Huo Jinlin turned off the faucet and dried her hands on her apron. But you remember this, all the sacrifices you've made. If my daughter doesn't appreciate them, you're free to leave any time.
I'll help take care of Tang Tang.
Pei Yunheng stood there, his mouth opening for 2 seconds, then closing. In that moment, he suddenly understood why Su Nianyao was nothing like her mother, because all the good parts had been kept by the mother herself. The wind on the balcony was a little cold. Pei Yunheng dialed Ji Heng's number. It connected before the first ring even finished. Holy, I thought you were dead. Ji Heng's voice exploded through the speaker. Heng, you haven't answered my calls in 3 years. Do you know I almost burned incense for your soul? Get to the point. Ji Heng's mouth snapped shut. 3 seconds of silence. Then his voice dropped low, carrying the ash taste of something burned out. Liu Qinghe from Dongsheng has brought in 3 institutions, Dinghe, a branch of the UBS system, and a new fund called Zhaohua. They're planning a leveraged buyout to swallow those 8 northern land parcels.
I've read the contract.
It's watertight legally. They're using the major asset swap clause in the group's charter.
Article 17? You remember? I wrote it.
Ji Heng's breath caught for a beat. Then you know that Article 17 requires a 2/3 majority of the board. There are 12 seats on the board right now. Liu Qinghe has pulled 6 on his side, plus his own 2 votes. That's 8.
I only have 4.
4 votes short of passing. Pei Yunheng's fingers tapped lightly on the railing.
When's the vote?
Next Wednesday.
Plenty of time. The line went quiet for a second, and then Ji Heng's voice came through like a fish pulled from water, trembling with the shock of survival. Heng, you mean you'd better keep this quiet for now? I might have to step out and handle a few things soon.
A few things? More than just the company?
Pei Yunheng thought about the 8 WeChat messages Su Nianyao had sent him, then about the face Song Yifan had made sitting in the head seat at the table. Just some side business.
Then when are you coming back?
I never said I was coming back.
Then Ji-heng, here.
I need you to look someone up for me. Song Yifan, Deputy General Manager of Zhaohua Group. The breathing on the other end of the line changed its rhythm.
Zhaohua?
That new outfit?
Wait, the Song Yifan you're talking about. Look into his connection with Lu Qinghe. Pei Yunheng hung up. From behind the balcony door came the soft sound of footsteps. He turned. Huo Jinlin was standing in the living room, wearing a gray loungewear set, holding a glass of warm water in her hands. They locked eyes for a second. Huo Jinlin set the glass down on the coffee table.
Do what you need to do.
Watched Tang Tang. Pei Yunheng picked up the water and took a sip.
Warm.
Just right.
He watched his mother-in-law turn and walk back toward her room, and the corner of his mouth curved up slightly. Not a bitter smile. It was the kind of settled, grounded feeling you get when someone's got your back. The next morning at 8:30, Su Nianyao's car pulled up downstairs from Huo Jinlan's place. Pei Yunheng was in the kitchen frying eggs. Tang Tang sat at the dining table, crayon in hand, drawing on a piece of white paper, a picture of a woman holding up a bottle, smashing it over the head of a tiny figure. Next to it, in wobbly crooked letters, Shed written 4 words, "Grandma is so brave." The doorbell rang. Huo Jinlan went to answer it. Su Nianyao stood at the door. She clearly hadn't slept much the night before, dark circles under her eyes, lips cracked and dry, her left hand clutching her phone, her right hand's fingernails digging into her palm.
Mom, about what I said yesterday. Come in first.
Su Nianyao stepped inside, and the first thing she saw was Pei Yunheng in the kitchen. He was wearing a white t-shirt with gray lounge pants, a floral apron from Huo Jinlan tied around his waist, spatula in hand. His hair was uncombed, 2 strands sticking up. Su Nianyao's gaze lingered on him for a second, then quickly looked away.
Yunheng, have a seat.
Breakfast's almost ready. Pei Yunheng didn't even look up. Su Nianyao stood in the living room like a nail that had been pulled out of a wall, not knowing where to hammer herself back in. Tang Tang looked up at her.
Mommy.
Look what I drew.
Su Nianyao walked over, glanced down at the drawing. Her expression froze. Tang Tang, what is this you drew?
Grandma's smacking the bad uncle.
Tang Tang announced with total confidence.
The bad uncle said Daddy was useless, so Grandma went bang. Okay, that's enough.
Su Nianyao flipped the paper over in one swift motion. Huo Jinlan sat down on the couch, picked up the remote and turned on the TV, switching to a health and wellness channel. Pei Yunheng came out carrying 3 plates and set them on the table. Fried eggs, toast, and a small dish of avocado slices. Tang Tang's portion had the egg cut into the shape of a heart. Su Nianyao looked at that heart-shaped egg, and her throat moved. She took a deep breath. Yunheng, about yesterday, Yifan had had too much to drink. The things he said he wasn't drunk. Pei Yunheng sat down and forked a piece of toast. He said it before the banquet even started. No one had poured him a single glass. Su Nianyao's words got stuck in her throat. And you weren't planning on defending me, either. Pei Yunheng's tone was as flat as slicing toast. No anger, no accusation. Just stating a fact. Su Nianya's nails dug deeper into her palm. At the time, you thought he had a point.
I did not.
You smiled. 2 words. They hit the floor and didn't bounce. Su Nianyao opened her mouth, but nothing came out. On the TV, Huo Jinlan's wellness channel was explaining the optimal water temperature for steeping goji berries. 80 degrees Celsius is ideal. Never use boiling water. The volume was turned up loud. Pei Yunheng finished half his toast, then wiped his mouth with a napkin.
Nianyo, you should head back.
I need to take Tang Tang to kindergarten today. Kindergarten isn't until the afternoon. Today's parents' open day.
Su Nianyao's lips pressed into a thin line.
She stood there for a few seconds, then turned and left. The sound of the door closing wasn't loud, but Pei Yunheng could feel the force behind it. She hadn't slammed it, but Shed wanted to. Tang Tang watched the door, half a heart-shaped egg stuffed in her mouth. Daddy, is Mommy mad?
No.
But she walked really heavily. That's because she's wearing high heels. Grandma never wears high heels. Tang Tang said it with complete seriousness. From the couch, Huo Jinlan gave an of agreement without turning around. Pei Yunheng's phone lit up on the table. A message from Ji-heng, Henga, got it. Song Yifan and Lu Qinghe aren't just business partners. 35% of Zhaohua Group's equity is registered under Lu Qinghe's wife's name. Pei Yunheng read it, then flipped the phone face down. He picked up a slice of avocado and put it in his mouth. The flavor was plain, but the nutrition was balanced, pretty much matched how he was feeling right now. Golden Apple Bilingual Kindergarten. The name sounded like some knockoff training institute, but in reality, when Pei Yunheng had first brought Tang Tang in for the interview, the receptionist had looked at the parent information form, head filled out, seen the words freelancer under the father's occupation column, and flashed him a smile that Pei Yunheng recognized all too well. That smile, translated into plain language, meant another one who lost his job but is trying to keep up appearances. Back then, the kindergarten's enrollment quota had been full for ages. Pei Yunheng had waited in the hallway for 20 minutes and was just about to get up and leave. Suddenly, the principal's office door burst open from the inside with a bang. A round-faced, middle-aged woman charged out, sprinting down the hallway in flats at what could only be described as Usain Bolt speed. She screeched to a halt right in front of Pei Yunheng, her soles letting out a sharp squeak against the floor. Mr. Pei? Yes. Pei Yunheng. Mr. Pei? Pei Yunheng nodded. The principal's face went through a complete RGB color cycle. First white, then red, then purple.
Mr.
Pei, why are you sitting out in the hallway?
Why didn't you just come straight to me?
If you'd said something about the enrollment quota in advance, no, you don't need to say anything. I'll arrange it right now. The best class bilingual with a Cambridge graduate foreign teacher. Pei Yunheng. No need for all that trouble. A regular class is fine. Principal. Then I'll put you in the best regular class. From that day on, every time Pei Yunheng came to drop off or pick up Tang Tang, the principal would personally greet him at the door. Not with warmth, with deference. The reason was simple. The investor behind Golden Apple Bilingual Kindergarten, Hengshuang Education Group, was an unremarkable branch of the Pei family empire. Pei Yunheng had nearly forgotten it existed. Today was Parents' Open Day. A banner stretched across the front gate, colorful balloons tied to the iron railings, and several teachers stood at the entrance holding signs that read "Welcome, Parents." When Pei Yunheng walked over carrying Tang Tang in his arms, Principal Zhou Hui was already waiting at the door. The moment she spotted him, her smile switched to maximum wattage.
Mr. Pei.
Tang Tang looks adorable today. Tang Tang waved her little rabbit plush in the air. Hello, Principal Zhou.
Hello, please, come in. Oh,
Mr.
Pei, your shoelace is loose. Let me help. No need. Pei Yunheng crouched down to tie it himself. And then a black Mercedes GLS pulled up to the kindergarten entrance. The door opened. Song Yifan stepped out from the driver's seat. Head changed into casual wear today. A deep navy polo shirt with a polo horse logo stitched on the chest, a pair of sunglasses perched on his nose, and a bandage stuck to the back of his head, the souvenir from last night's bottle. He was on the phone as he got out, his voice loud enough to carry half the street. Just have legal handle the contract details. You don't need to run everything by me.
what?
Yeah, the 30 million bid, use your own judgment. He hung up, pulled off his sunglasses, and spotted Pei Yunheng crouched on the ground, tying his laces. The corner of his mouth curled up.
Well.
Yunheng, here to pick up your kid too?
Pei Yunheng finished tying his shoe and stood up.
Parents' Open Day.
Oh, Song Yifan stretched the syllable out.
Niao couldn't make it, so she sent you?
Enough.
Song Yifan smiled.
That smile was exactly the same one from the dinner table last night. Pei Yunheng half suspected he practiced it in front of a mirror.
Right, well,
It's not like you have anything else going on. He patted Pei Yunheng's shoulder, that same ambiguous pressure, not too light, not too heavy. Then he strode inside. Principal Zhou Hui stood at the entrance, watching Song Yifan. Her smile plummeted from maximum wattage to standby mode. Sir, which child's parent are you?
Song Yifan paused mid-step.
Oh, I'm not a parent. I'm just here to look at the environment. A friend's child is considering transferring here. Do you have an appointment?
Song Yifan frowned.
I'm Song Yifan, Deputy General Manager of Zhaohua Group. He handed over his business card. Zhou Hui took the card, glanced at it, and her expression didn't change a single degree. Mr. Song, our open day is only for parents of currently enrolled students. Outside visitors need to schedule an appointment in advance. Song Yifan's brow furrowed deeper. A kindergarten with this many rules? It's policy. Song Yifan drew a deep breath. He kept a courteous smile plastered on his face, but the muscles around his eyes were already twitching.
Fine. Can I book one for tomorrow?
Zhou Hui was about to answer. Her gaze swept over to Pei Yunheng. He was holding Tang Tang's hand, leaning down to quietly ask if she wanted some water. Zhou Hui's expression shifted.
She turned and bowed slightly toward Pei Yunheng. The angle of that bow about 15 degrees precisely calibrated to the position of respect.
Mr.
Pei, I've arranged for Tang Tang to be in class 1 for today's open day.
Would that be all right?
Whatever's convenient.
Of course, of course.
Please, right this way. Pei Yunheng took Tang Tang's hand and walked in.
Song Yifan stood at the entrance, watching the stark difference in how Zhou Hui had treated him just moments ago versus how Shed just treated Pei Yunheng.
His smile froze for 2 full seconds. He called out, "Principal Zhou, about my matter." Zhou Hui turned back. Her smile was so standard it looked pasted on.
Mr. Song, please call to schedule an appointment.
Then she turned around and trotted off to catch up with Pei Yunheng. Song Yifan stood at the kindergarten gate. The autumn wind blew past. The balloon strings slapped against the iron railings with a hollow patter. He looked down at the business card in his hand, the one no one had accepted. Then he made a call.
Mr.
Liu, it's Yifan.
That acquisition plan. We can't wait any longer.
I need a result before next Wednesday.
A low murmur buzzed from the other end of the line.
Song Yifan tightened his grip on the phone.
Don't worry. That Pei Yunheng from the Pei family, a good-for-nothing who stays home raising a kid. He can't turn the tide. He hung up. As he turned to get back in the car, the wind peeled up a corner of the bandage on the back of his head. He hissed through his teeth and pressed it back down, hard. His fingers came away with a faint stickiness. The blood hadn't fully dried yet. The next 3 days, Su Nianyao's life felt like a roller coaster, the kind that only goes downhill.
First, there was the company.
Monday morning meeting. The CFO stood in front of the projection screen holding a report, his face about as pale as the screen itself. President Su, last month our major client Dongsheng Real Estate abruptly terminated cooperation agreements on 3 projects. Their stated reason, he flipped a page. Strategic direction adjustment. Su Nianyao's hand holding her coffee stopped midair.
Dongsheng?
Liu Qinghe's company?
Didn't he say he wanted to expand the partnership?
Yes, but last Friday his secretary sent an email.
Very polite wording, but the message was clear. They're done.
Su Nianyao's brows knitted into a tight knot. Then, Tuesday afternoon, 3 shareholders sent her a joint letter demanding an emergency shareholders meeting, with the agenda item being a vote of confidence in management. The lead shareholder's surname was Wei. Su Nianyao knew him. At last year's annual banquet, Head raised a toast to her. Back then, Mr.
Wei had patted her on the shoulder and said, "Little Sue, keep up the good work.
You've got a bright future."
Now the document this same Mr.
Wei had sent over read first item in light of management's recent decision-making failures which have led to the loss of core clients. Su Nianyao finished reading. Her temples throbbed 3 times. The first person she thought of was Song Yifan. "Yifan, can you find out what's going on with Dongsheng?"
Aren't you connected with Liu Qinghe's circle?
On the other end of the line, Song Yifan's voice was warm and reassuring.
Nianyao, don't panic.
"I'll look into it for you. Dongsheng is probably just going through internal restructuring. It's not necessarily aimed at you. And the shareholders meeting? Don't worry. I'll help you hold things steady. Just stay calm." Su Nianyao hung up and let out a breath. What she didn't notice was, after Song Yifan hung up on his end, the corner of his mouth curved upward, the exact same arc Head used on Pei Yunheng. He dialed another number. "President Wei, Nianyao's already panicking."
Just proceed with the plan.
Wednesday.
Su Nianyao sat in her office, staring at a spreadsheet for 3 straight hours. The numbers danced before her eyes like they'd grown legs. Her coffee had gone cold and been reheated. Gone cold and been reheated. Until a ring of brown residue crusted the inside of the cup. Her phone buzzed.
Song Yifan.
"Nianyao, I did some digging. Dongsheng's not doing a strategic adjustment. Someone's pushing a merger plan to swallow up the North District commercial plots. Dongsheng's so swamped right now, they can't even think about partnering with you." Su Nianyao's fingers froze on the desk.
A merger plan?
Who's merging who?
Not entirely clear. Something called Pace Hengchuang Group.
Heard of it?
She frowned.
Pace Hengchuang?
No. What does that have to do with me?
Probably nothing. But don't count on Dongsheng for the partnership. I was thinking maybe you should consider bringing in a new investor?
I have some channels." She listened to his voice and felt something twist, somewhere she couldn't name.
But she couldn't put her finger on it. After hanging up, she opened her phone and searched Pace Hengchuang. The results came back. First entry, Hengchuang Capital, one of China's top private equity firms, managing over 80 billion in assets. Su Nianyao's finger hovered over the screen. She scrolled. Hengchuang Capital's founder stepped down from all positions 3 years ago and withdrew from the public market. The group is currently managed entirely by CEO Ji Heng. Behind the word founder, there was no name. Every report, every interview, Every photo, clean, wiped away like someone had gone over it with an eraser. Su Nianyao stared at the screen, her fingers unconsciously typing a surname into the search bar. Pei. She deleted it.
Typed it again.
Deleted it again. She picked up her phone and opened her chat history with Pei Yunheng. Her last message, sent yesterday. Tang Tang's cotton coat is in the third compartment on the right side of the wardrobe. Pei Yunheng had replied with a single word. Okay. She stared at that, okay, for a long time. She remembered what her mother-in-law had said in the car. She hadn't heard it directly. But Su Jiangguo had called and told her last night. Your mother said the things Yunheng put down. You have no idea. Su Nianyao's nails dug into her palm.
What things?
She and Pei Yunheng had been married 5 years. His resume said investment advisor. Then she got pregnant, and he quit his job to stay home.
5 years.
Had never mentioned any impressive past. Never made any earth-shattering phone calls. Never met any slick-suited friends. He was just a man who stayed home with their daughter. A man who fried heart-shaped eggs, wore a floral apron, and woke up with 2 tufts of hair sticking up.
Right?
Su Nianyao set her phone face down on the desk. She opened Pei Yunheng's Moments, empty. From the day he registered to now, not a single post. She scrolled through his contacts. Shed accidentally glimpsed it once before. So few people it was almost pitiful. She remembered one name. Ji Heng. Ji Heng. Where had she seen that name? She reopened the search engine and typed Ji Heng. First result, Hengchuang Capital CEO Ji Heng attends the 2025 Asia-Pacific Economic Forum. Su Nianyao's pupils shrank to pinpricks. Hengchuang Capital CEO Ji Heng. Her breath came short. The Ji Heng in Pei Yunheng's contacts. And the CEO of an 80 billion private equity empire. The same person? Her fingers went numb.
She flipped her phone over, then flipped it back.
Impossible. She shook her head.
Definitely just a coincidence.
How many people in China could be named Ji Heng? She searched Ji Heng's same name. Results approximately 3. Of the 3, 2 were Hengchuang Capital's CEO. 1 was an adoption listing for a ragdoll cat named Ji Heng.
Su Nianyao.
She shoved her phone into the drawer.
Stop thinking about it.
Handle the company first. But that night, lying in the empty king-sized bed, Pei Yunheng and Tang Tang still staying at Huo Jinlands. She stared at the ceiling, one sentence turning over and over in her mind. Her mother-in-law's words. Your husband's hands, have you ever held them? Full of calluses. Those weren't worn in by raising a child. Su Nianyao slipped her hand under the blanket and clenched it.
She couldn't remember the feel of Pei Yunheng's palm.
Was it rough?
She hadn't held his hand in a long time. Thursday afternoon, Pei Yunheng sat in Huo Jinlin's living room, Tang Tang in one arm, his phone in the other, reading the file Ji Heng had sent. Tang Tang scribbled in her coloring book, occasionally shoving it up to his face.
Daddy, look. This is a dinosaur.
A dinosaur.
You didn't even look.
Pei Yunheng glanced down, a crooked circle with 2 sticks stuck on top and a tail dragging off the bottom.
Very accurate.
Really? Tang Tang beamed with pride.
Pei Yunheng flipped to the next page.
Ji Heng's investigation report was meticulous. Song Yifan, vice president of Zhaohua Group. Zhaohua Group established 2 years, 3 months ago. Registered capital 30 million, paid-in capital 5 million. Core business, asset management shell. Actual controller, Chen Yezhi, wife of Lu Qinghe nominee holding. Song Yifan's shareholding, 15% nominal. Actual role, Lu Qinghe's frontman. Pei Yunheng's finger slid across the screen. Relationship between Song Yifan and Su Nianyao. Pursued her unsuccessfully in university. Maintained contact after graduation. 3 years ago obtained internal information from Pei Hengchuang through Su Nianyao non-core level, forwarded to Lu Qinghe's team for preliminary research on the North District plot acquisition plan. Pei Yunheng's finger stopped. Obtained information through Su Nianyao. He slowly set the phone down. Tang Tang drew her dinosaur in his lap, humming a song Shed learned in kindergarten. Her voice sticky and soft. Pei Yunheng's gaze settled on the cowlick at the crown of his daughter's head. After a few seconds, he picked up his phone and replied to Ji Heng. Does Su Nianyao know the information was passed on to someone? Ji Heng replied instantly. Based on what we know so far, she has no idea. Every time Song Yifan talks to her, Hez fishing for information under the guise of asking for business advice. She thinks Shez just helping a friend with questions. Pei Yunheng was silent for 10 seconds. But she did leak internal company information to an outsider. Yes, intentionally or not, that's the fact. Pei Yunheng's thumb hovered over the screen for a moment. Keep digging. Pull up every communication record between Song Yifan and Sun Yanyo from the past 3 years. Heng, all of it? All of it.
Got it.
Also, Liu Qinghe pushed things forward again today. He moved the vote up to this Saturday. Pei Yunheng's brow twitched slightly.
3 days earlier.
Yeah, he knows I've been stalling, trying to catch me off guard. Hang Jie, there's no time left unless you step in directly. Pei Yunheng looked out the window. Huo Jinlan's windows faced south, and the afternoon sun slanted in, casting a long strip of light across the floor. Tang Tang's picture book lay spread in that light, the dinosaur's tail neatly bisected by the sunbeam.
Ji Heng.
I'm here. Notify the board. Tell them Pei Yunheng is back. 3 seconds of silence on the other end of the line. Then Ji Heng's voice carried a tremor of someone who'd just survived a disaster. He probably hadn't been this moved in his entire life. Heng Yu. Finally, I've been waiting 3 years to hear those words. Calm down. Your blood pressure's already high.
Calm down my ass?
My eyes just got a little hot. A man's tears. Nothing to be ashamed of. Pei Yunheng hung up. Huo Jinlan happened to walk out of the kitchen carrying a plate of cut oranges.
Decided?
Yeah. Then prepare Tang Tang's meals for the weekend. You go without worry. Pei Yunheng took a piece of orange and handed it to Tang Tang. Tang Tang took it, took a bite, and juice smeared across her chin. Daddy, are you going out? Just for a bit.
I'll be back soon.
Are you going to beat up the bad uncle?
Pei Yunheng, who taught you that?
Tang Tang pointed at the TV Ultraman was playing.
If you beat the monster, you can come back.
Pei Yunheng looked at his daughter's face, was silent for 2 seconds, then reached out and ruffled her hair.
Yeah.
I'll beat the monster and come back.
Friday.
Pei Yunheng changed into a different set of clothes. This was the first time in 3 years he'd worn a formal suit. The black suit was custom-made 3 years ago, hanging in the deepest corner of Huo Jinlin's closet. Shed ironed it at some point without him knowing, folded it neatly, and even tucked a mothball inside. He stood before the mirror, buttoning the top button of his shirt, then unbuttoning it, then buttoning it again.
3 years without formal wear, the collar felt tight.
The man in the mirror, 36 years old, highbrow bone, sharp jawline, slightly sunken eye sockets. Compared to 3 years ago, he had 2 extra nasolabial folds and a few strands of white hair, but those eyes hadn't changed. Ji Heng had once said that when Pei Yunheng sat across the negotiation table, what made people uneasy wasn't what he said, it was that when he said nothing at all, those eyes were as calm as deep water, and you could never see the bottom. The sound of a key turning came from the door. Ho Jinlin had returned from grocery shopping. She stood at the entrance, saw Pei Yunheng in his suit, and the grocery bag in her hand swayed slightly. Looking sharp, Pei Yunheng looked down and adjusted his cuff. Mom, these next few days, don't say it, just go. Ho Jinlin changed her shoes, walked in, and set the grocery bag on the kitchen counter. I don't have many talents in this life, but I can watch a kid. She paused, turned back to look at Pei Yunheng, and her expression softened for a rare second. Yunheng, what should be taken back? Take it back.
What shouldn't stay? Don't keep it.
Pei Yunheng looked at his mother-in-law's back, his throat moving. He bent at the waist, a 90-degree bow. Thank you, Mom. Huo Jinlin kept her back to him, rinsing vegetable leaves under the running water. Don't thank me. Thank yourself for not turning into a real good-for-nothing. Friday night, Dongfang Yan Hotel Revolving Restaurant, 38th floor. Pei Yunheng had been here many times. 3 years ago, the total value of contracts had signed in this place exceeded the construction cost of the entire building. Tonight, he wasn't here to sign contracts. Song Yifan was here too. Liu Qinghe was hosting, treating several key figures of the North District project. On the surface, it was a casual dinner gathering, but in reality, it was the final alignment check before the merger vote. Song Yifan sat to Liu Qinghe's right, a position second only to the host's seat, exactly the same spot he occupied at the Su family dinner table. He wore a dark gray suit with gold cufflinks tonight. The bandage on the back of his head was finally gone, leaving a dark red scar mostly hidden by his hairstyle. Also present were President Wei, 2 investment firm partners, and several directors of Pace Hengchuang. Ji Heng sat in the corner with an untouched cup of tea in front of him, his expression resembling someone at a funeral.
President Ji, lighten up.
Liu Qinghe held a glass of red wine, a man in his early 50s with graying temples, smiling amiably, though that amiability concealed a knife. Hengchuang has managed without President Pei all these years, and you've held things together alone. That's no easy feat. This merger plan benefits everyone. The North District plots are just sitting idle in your hands anyway. Better to activate them. Resource integration, right? Ji Heng's mouth twitched.
Idle.
Those 8 North District plots were personally secured by Pei Yunheng back in the day, each one positioned at a core node of urban development. Land prices had quadrupled since then, and Liu Qinghe wanted to swap them away at 3-year-old valuations. That wasn't resource integration, that was a steal, and a devastating one at that. But Ji Heng couldn't lose his temper, because he only held 4 votes, 4 short of being steamrolled.
Song Yifan chimed in from the side. President Ji, don't be so stubborn.
President Pei has been in retirement for 3 years now. He doesn't even care anymore. Who are you worrying for? He held his glass, smiling easily, as if discussing the weather. To put it bluntly, a man who stays home taking care of a kid. What waves can he possibly make? A few directors exchanged glances. Someone lowered their head to sip tea. Ji Heng's fingers clenched on his knee. He wanted to speak. The revolving restaurant's doors opened. Everyone instinctively looked over. Pei Yunheng walked in. A black suit, a white shirt, no tie. His pace was neither hurried nor slow, leather shoes striking the marble floor with a crisp, rhythmic click, each step landing like a metronome counting out a beat.
His expression was calm.
Not the forced kind of calm, the kind that grew out of the bone, forged by having seen too much to be rattled by anything anymore.
Light from the revolving restaurant poured down from above, carving a sharp line of shadow across his face.
Song Yifan's wine glass stopped at his lips. He recognized Pei Yunheng, but his first reaction wasn't tension, it was confusion. A man who stayed home raising kids. What was he doing in a place like this? He looked at Liu Qinghe.
Liu Qinghe's smile had frozen solid, too.
And then Ji Heng stood up. He rose fast, his chair scraping against the floor with a harsh squeak. Brother Heng. 2 words, but his tone, his eyes, the way he shot up from his seat like a coiled spring released. Every person in the room could feel that something was off. Ji Heng was the CEO of Hengchuan Capital, the man steering an 80 billion yuan ship, a man who could sit stone-faced through any business negotiation, and he was standing there now, his eyes rimmed with red. You're finally here. Pei Yunheng walked to the table and swept his gaze across every face in the room. His eyes passed over Liu Qinghe. Liu Qinghe's fingers twitched and withdrew beneath the tablecloth. They passed over President Wei Wei's teacup, halfway to his mouth, was set back down. They passed over the 2 investment partners. They exchanged a glance and simultaneously leaned back 2 inches into their chairs. Finally, his gaze landed on Song Yifan.
Song Yifan's wine glass finally came down.
Yunheng?
How did you? Pei Yunheng didn't look at him.
He pulled out the empty chair beside Ji Heng and sat down. Then he spoke. His voice was quiet, like he was mentioning some trivial household matter.
President Liu.
Long time no see. Liu Qinghe's smile held, but something beneath it shifted. Pei Yunheng could see his Adam's apple bob once. A swallow. President Pei. What an honor. It's been a long time since we've seen you at an occasion like this.
3 years. I've been home raising the kids.
He said it with a flatness so complete it was almost surgical.
No self-deprecation.
No explanation.
Not a flicker of emotion.
Like a general saying, I just trimmed a rose from the garden, and you knew he could set down the shears and pick up a sword at any moment. Several board members straightened in their seats by a single degree.
They recognized Pei Yunheng.
Not his face. 3 years had blurred some people's memory of what he looked like. What they recognized was the feeling. When Pei Yunheng sat in a room, the air changed like the hush that falls over water the instant before it freezes. Song Yifan's mouth opened slightly. He wanted to say something, but his brain had suddenly stalled. Because head caught a detail, Ji Heng. Ji Heng hadn't sat back down. He stood at Pei Yunheng's side, slightly bent at the waist, his posture reverent to the bone. That wasn't how you stood next to a colleague. That wasn't how you stood next to a friend. That was how you stood next to your master. A chill crawled up Song Yifan's spine. He knocked the 2 titles together in his head. Brother Heng and President Pei, and they sparked.
Hengchong.
Pei.
Heng.
Pei Yunheng. Hengchuan Capital. 80 billion. His face cycled through red, to white, to gray in 3 rapid stages. Pei Yunheng lifted his eyelids and glanced at Song Yifan. Just one glance. That look carried no anger. No contempt, only one thing. The view from above. Like standing on a cliff's edge watching an insect scrabble at the bottom. Song Yifan's fingers clenched tight beneath the tablecloth. Pei Yunheng shifted his gaze away from him, turning to Liu Qinghe. President Liu, I hear you have an acquisition proposal? The corner of Liu Qinghe's mouth twitched. President Pei, this matter, I've read the proposal. Pei Yunheng took a document from Ji Heng's hand and set it down gently on the table. Article 17. Major asset restructuring requires approval from 2/3 of the directors.
You've gathered 8 votes?
Liu Qing has fingers crossed beneath the table, knuckles going white.
Yes.
Then do you know, Pei Yunheng flipped to the final page of the contract and pointed at the fine print at the very bottom. That Article 17 of the Hengchuan Group Charter has an attached clause.
A flicker crossed Liu Qinghe's eyes.
What attached clause?
Pei Yunheng pushed the document across the table.
Liu Qinghe looked down.
His face went from gray to white. Any restructuring involving core group assets is subject to the founder's veto. This clause took effect from the date of the group's founding and cannot be amended nor revoked. Liu Qinghe's mouth opened slightly. He turned to look at Song Yifan. Song Yifan's face was even paler than his. Beside them, Ji Heng's lips finally curved. Head waited 3 years for this moment. President Liu, Pei Yunheng's voice remained calm, like he was reading off a menu. Your acquisition proposal, I vetoed it. The revolving restaurant continued its slow turn. The city's nightscape drifted past the windows, neon lights dragging trails of color across the glass. No one spoke. Beads of sweat had broken out on Song Yifan's forehead. The October AC was set to 20 degrees, and he was sweating. He suddenly shot to his feet, his chair screeching against the floor.
President Pei? This is impossible.
You've been retired for 3 years? What right do you have? Pei Yunheng lifted his eyelids.
What right?
His finger tapped lightly on the tabletop. The right of the man who built this group. Every line of that charter was written by me. Every piece of land was negotiated by me. You're asking me what right I have at the Su family's dinner table. His voice never rose, but Song Yifan's knees buckled involuntarily.
Ask me again.
Song Yifan's lips trembled. Liu Qinghe's wine glass shattered on the floor. Not thrown, just dropped from shaking hands. Red wine soaked across the tablecloth like a spilled pool of artificial blood.
5 seconds of silence.
President Wei was the first to react. He rose from his chair, lifting his glass. President Pei, long time no see. His voice shook, but his smile switched over smoothly, from siding with Liu Qinghe to welcoming the real boss, seamless, utterly shameless. The 2 investment partners stood up as well. President Pei, good to see you. Liu Qinghe sat frozen in the seat of honor, his face ashen as if head crawled out of a coffin. He turned his head slowly, looking at Song Yifan. Song Yifan was looking at him too. Their gazes met, and what collided wasn't sparks. It was a death knell. Pei Yunheng leaned back against his chair and picked up the untouched cup of tea in front of Ji Heng. He took a sip. It was cold.
He didn't mind.
Song Yifan hadn't given up.
He couldn't give up.
Because he owed Liu Qinghe 30 million yuan, the 15% stake in Zhaohua hadn't come free. If the merger plan was rejected, Zhaohua would be nothing but a hollow shell, and his 15% would be worth less than scrap paper. Liu Qinghe hadn't given up either. After Friday night's dinner had ended, Liu Qinghe made a dozen phone calls in a single night, pulling together a team of lawyers to study the loopholes in that veto power clause. Conclusion: there were no loopholes. Pei Yunheng's contract drafting was like sealing a coffin with concrete. Even if you had the strength to pry it open, you'd never find the seam. Liu Qinghe smashed an ashtray. Then he thought of another path. If you can't break through the front, you go around. If you can't take down the tiger, you go after its cub. Saturday morning, 10 o'clock.
Pei Tang was swinging on a swing set in the small garden below Huo Jinlan's apartment.
Huo Jinlan sat on a nearby bench, knitting. She was making Tang a red cardigan, the sleeves only half finished. Tang swung to the highest point, let go of the chains, and raised her little hands.
Grandma, look.
I'm flying. Hold on tight. Whoa. Jinlun didn't even look up, her knitting needles clicking away. Tang giggled twice and grabbed the chains again. That was when a woman walked over, early 30s, wearing a white trench coat, light makeup, and a soft smile.
Hello, little one. What's your name?
Tang tilted her head and looked at her. Mommy says I can't talk to strangers.
Oh, Auntie isn't a stranger.
Auntie is a new teacher at your kindergarten, here for a home visit.
Tang studied her.
You're not a teacher at our school.
All our teachers wear green. The woman's smile faltered for a beat.
Huo Jinlin set down her knitting needles and looked up.
She stared at the woman for 3 seconds.
Who are you looking for?
Oh, you must be the little one's grandma, right?
Grandmother. Huo Jinlin corrected her, standing up. A 53-year-old woman, and when she stood, she had more presence than when she was sitting. She wasn't tall, barely over 5 feet, but she stood there like a wall. You're not a kindergarten teacher.
Golden Apple's uniforms are dark blue,
not green.
My granddaughter deliberately said it wrong. She was testing you.
The woman's face paled a shade. Tang Tang swung her legs on the swing.
Grandma's amazing.
Huo Jinlin stepped in front of Tang Tang in one stride and lifted the child off the swing.
Come on.
We're going home. The woman stepped forward. Sister, don't misunderstand. I really am. One more step and I call the police. Huo Jinlan's voice didn't rise, but the frequency of it was like shoving ice shards down the woman's collar. The woman took half a step back. Her eyes flickered, and she turned and walked away. Huo Jinlin carried Tang Tang back upstairs, locked the door behind her, and picked up her phone to send Pei Yunheng a WeChat message. Someone came to probe Tang Tang. A woman I don't recognize, white trench coat, claimed to be a kindergarten teacher.
I sent her packing.
Pei Yunheng was in Ji Heng's office when he saw the message. His hand, the hand holding the documents, his knuckles cracked audibly. Ji Heng looked up at him, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He recognized that expression on Pei Yunheng's face. 3 years ago, someone had sabotaged the Pei Group during a business negotiation, cutting off a supply chain. When Pei Yunheng heard the news, had worn the same expression, no shouting, no throwing things, just sitting there quietly. His finger joints cracked once, and within a week, that company had vanished from the market.
Heng, what's wrong?
Pei Yunheng handed him the phone. Ji Heng glanced at the message and sucked in a cold breath. They're going after Tang Tang? Pei Yunheng didn't answer. He stood up and buttoned his suit jacket. Ji Heng, here, the equity penetration report for Xiaohua Group.
Give it to me.
Already prepared. What about the list of financial loopholes at Dongsheng Real Estate? Compiled last Wednesday. Wait, how did you know Dongsheng had financial loopholes? Pei Yunheng looked at him. A company that can't even write a proper contract? You think their books are clean? Ji Heng.
Fair point.
One more thing. Pei Yunheng paused at the door.
That temporary shareholders meeting for Sun Yanya's company, block it for her.
Ji Heng froze.
Help her.
But aren't you? Block it. There was no room for negotiation in Pei Yunheng's tone. The seed capital for that company came from me, and 3 of the founding team members were introduced by me. She didn't get where she is entirely on her own, but that doesn't mean Song Yifan gets to take it from her. Ji Heng opened his mouth, then swallowed the words rising in his throat.
Understood.
Pei Yunheng pulled the door open and walked out. The air conditioning hummed in the hallway. Ji Heng sat in his office chair, touching his face. He felt a layer of cold sweat. What made Pei Yunheng terrifying when he was angry wasn't when he lost his temper. It was when he didn't lose his temper, when he just quietly went to work. That was what truly made your back crawl. He picked up the phone and dialed.
Legal department?
Prepare the litigation materials? Yes. The full set targeting Xiaohua Group and Dongsheng Real Estate. No, not a lawsuit.
Nuclear level.
The boss' exact words. He paused. Pei Yunheng hadn't said the exact words, but Ji Heng knew him too well.
Not a single one of them gets away.
Saturday.
Pei Yunheng appeared downstairs at Sun Yanya's company.
He didn't go up.
He stood under a plane tree on the opposite side of the street, holding a cup of convenience store American coffee, the cheapest kind, 12 yuan a cup. He glanced at his phone, a message from Ji Heng. Henggi, the shareholders' meeting has been handled. After I called President Wei, he withdrew the joint letter on the spot. I never signed anything like that. Whoever spreads rumors, ill sue.
His exact words.
Pei Yunheng replied with a single ME. A few minutes later, a second message came in. The financial loophole report on Dongsheng Real Estate had already been delivered to the Securities Regulatory Commission. Liu Qinghe had received 2 phone calls that morning. One was a bank loan recall notice, the other a tax audit appointment. His current state, according to the person I have stationed there, was like a toad splashed with boiling water. Pei Yunheng didn't laugh. A third message came through. The equity penetration report on Xiaohua Group has also been sent out.
Song Yifan's 15% stake has suspected nominee holding issues, with indications of concealed actual controller information. The Industry and Commerce Bureau has already started investigating.
Pei Yunheng finished his coffee, crushed the paper cup flat, and tossed it into the trash can. He was about to leave. The doors of the office building across the street swung open.
Sun Yanya walked out.
She was wearing that black dress, the same one from the family dinner that night. But today she was mant in heels. Shed swapped them for flats. Her hair was loose too, not tied up, slightly tousled by the wind. She looked down at her phone, walking to the intersection to wait for the light to change. Pei Yunheng stood on the other side of the road, watching her. He remembered the first time he'd seen Sun Yanyao. She was 24 then, fresh out of college, interning at a small company. At the company's annual party, she stood in a corner holding a drink, surrounded by bosses in suits toasting and clinking glasses, while she stood alone, head down, texting. Pei Yunheng walked over and asked what she was doing. She said, "I'm complaining to my mom about how boring this party is." Pei Yunheng laughed. That was the first time Head laughed in a business setting.
What followed was only natural, pursuing her, dating, marriage, pregnancy, her saying she wanted to build her career, him saying okay.
Okay.
One word, and Head staked 3 years on it.
The light turned green. Su Nianyao looked up and started walking forward. Her gaze swept across the other side of the road. It landed on Pei Yunheng. Her steps stopped. The two of them stood across a 4-lane road, across 3 years of silence, across a family dinner that ended with a smashed bottle, and locked eyes for 3 seconds. Su Nianyao's lips moved. Pei Yunheng saw it. She was silently mouthing one word.
He didn't walk over.
He turned and left. Su Nianyao stood in the middle of the road as the green light flickered to red. Car horns blared behind her. She didn't move. She stared at Pei Yunheng's retreating figure, black suit, steady strides, unhurried, until he turned a corner and vanished into the shadows of the plane trees. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A WeChat message from Song Yifan. "Nianyao, something's wrong.
The Commerce Bureau is investigating me.
Can you help me? Su Nianyao glanced at the message.
She didn't reply. She slipped the phone back into her pocket and ran across the road before the light turned green again, heading toward the direction Pei Yunheng had disappeared. She rounded that corner. The street was empty. Plane tree leaves scattered across the ground, crunching softly underfoot. Pei Yunheng was gone. Su Nianyao stood there for a while. The wind blew, and her hair clung to her face, covering half an eye. She crouched down.
Not because she was tired.
Because her knees had suddenly gone weak. She remembered that search result, Hengchuan Capital, managing assets exceeding 80 billion. She remembered Ji Heng, that name in Pei Yunheng's contacts. She remembered her mother-in-law's words. "Your husband's hand, have you ever held it?" She remembered 3 years ago when Shed told Pei Yunheng, "Can you stay home more and spend time with the kids?" Had been silent for a long time, and then said one word.
Okay.
Su Nianyao crouched on the leaf-strewn street, both hands covering her face. She didn't cry out loud, but her shoulders were shaking.
Song Yifan probably only started truly panicking around this point.
Not ordinary panic, the kind that crawls from your toes all the way up to the crown of your skull. The Commerce Bureau investigation came out of nowhere. Early Saturday morning, he was still drinking coffee at home when the doorbell rang. He opened the door to find 2 people in uniform holding file folders, their expressions flat as iron plates.
Mr.
Song Yifan, we're from the Market Supervision Administration.
Regarding the equity registration issues at Zhaohua Group, we need your cooperation in an investigation. Song Yifan spilled half his coffee onto his pajama pants, hissing at the burn. His first instinct was to call Liu Qinghe. 5 calls, no answer. On the 6th, someone picked up. Liu Qinghe's voice sounded like it was coming from underground. "Stop calling. I can't even take care of myself right now. Tax audits here. Banks pulled my loan. I can barely make payroll. Then what am I supposed to do? Find your own way out?"
Song Yifan, what did we say when we first partnered up?
When things go south, everyone handles their own mess.
Click. The line went dead.
Song Yifan sat on the couch gripping his phone, scenes replaying in his head like a movie. The moment at the family dinner when Head mocked Pei Yunheng. A grown man, holed up at home raising kids.
What a waste.
That sentence now echoed back like a boomerang whistling outward, arcing around, and landing with surgical precision in the back of his own skull. Same spot as yesterday. He touched his head. The wound throbbed faintly. He called Su Nianyao. No answer.
Sent a WeChat.
Read. No reply.
Called again.
The other line was powered off.
Song Yifan's fingers started trembling. A question he didn't dare think about surfaced in his mind. Who exactly is Pei Yunheng? If Pei Yunheng really was the founder of Hengchuan Capital, then Song Yifan, at the Su family dinner table, pointing his finger at the man's face and calling him worthless. The absurdity of that scene was roughly equivalent to a grasshopper hopping onto an elephant's forehead and mocking it for not being able to jump.
No.
It was more absurd than that.
Because the elephant didn't argue back.
The elephant just sat there quietly, peeling shrimp for his daughter.
Cold sweat crawled down Song Yifan's back.
He finally understood one thing now. Pei Yunheng hadn't been unable to defend himself that day. He simply couldn't be bothered. Like an adult facing a cricket chirping at his feet, even glancing down was a waste of time. Song Yifan sat on the couch, fingers clenched around his phone, knuckles white. A knock came at the door. Mr.
Song, please sign for your investigation cooperation notice.
Song Yifan closed his eyes. The sound of his mother-in-law's Maotai bottle smashing against his head echoed through his mind once more with a dull thud. 1 week later, Liu Qinghe's Dongsheng Real Estate was ordered to suspend operations for rectification due to financial loopholes and tax issues. His companies toppled one after another like a row of dominoes. Zhaohua Group was placed under investigation for fraudulent equity registration and concealing information about its actual controller. Song Yifan's 15% stake was frozen. His vice president title was gone. His salary was gone. His Patek Philippe Nautilus was listed on a second-hand platform, priced at $380,000, dropped to $250,000 after 3 days, and still no one bought it. The last time Sun Yannyao saw him was on a weekday afternoon. She sat in her office. The company's crisis had been resolved through Ji Heng's quiet maneuvering. The 3 co-signing shareholders had issued a collective apology. The partnership with Dongsheng was severed, but a subsidiary under Heng Chuang had picked up the contract, and on far better terms than Dongsheng had ever offered. Sun Yannyao wasn't stupid. She knew exactly who was behind all of this. She sat in her office chair, staring out the window, clutching a business card in her hand. Pei Yunheng's card from 3 years ago. Shed found it while cleaning out the bookshelf at home, tucked inside a parenting guide. On the title page, in Pei Yunheng's handwriting, "For Nianyao, may our child be braver than both of us." The card read, Pei Yunheng founder, Hengchuang Capital, phone number, email, address.
All of it.
Sun Yannyao stared at the card for a long time. Then her phone rang. Song Yifan.
She answered.
Nianyao, please help me. I'm at the end of my rope. Just talk to President Pei. Ask him to let me go. His voice had lost every trace of its former confidence and composure. It was hoarse, frantic, like a drowning man grasping at the last straw. Sun Yannyao held the phone silent for a long moment. Yifan. Yes, yes. I'm listening.
When you first approached me, was it Song Yifan approaching Sun Yannyao or Liu Qinghe approaching Pei Yunheng's wife?
Silence on the other end. 5 full seconds of silence.
Nianyao.
Listen, let me explain. No need. Sun Yannyao hung up. She deleted Song Yifan from WeChat, from her contacts, from every channel. Her finger swept across the screen, swipe after swipe, clean and decisive, like cutting away dead flesh.
When she was done, she took a deep breath.
Then she picked up Pei Yunheng's business card and walked out the door. At Ho Jinlin's house, Pei Yunheng was in the kitchen, braising pork ribs. The pot bubbled and gurgled, the rich scent of ribs mingling with star anise and cinnamon bark, filling the entire house. Tang Tang sat on the living room carpet building blocks, a castle. At the very top of the castle stood a little flag, and on the flag was drawn a dinosaur, the round blobby kind she always drew. Ho Jinlin was watering flowers on the balcony. The doorbell rang. Tang Tang bounced up and ran to open the door. Sun Yannyao stood outside. No high heels. No black dress. She wore a white hoodie, jeans, sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup. She looked like the girl who used to stand in the corner of the annual party sending text messages all those years ago. Tang Tang tilted her head up, looking at her for 2 seconds.
Mommy?
Then she looked down at her shoes. Mommy's wearing flat shoes today. Sun Yannyao crouched down and scooped Tang Tang into her arms.
Yeah, no more heels.
Carrying her daughter, she walked into the house. Pei Yunheng came out of the kitchen, spatula still in hand. Same floral apron as always. They locked eyes. Sun Yannyao's lips moved several times, but no sound came out. Pei Yunheng waited. He didn't rush her. He didn't turn away.
Yunheng. Yeah.
The business card. I found it. She held the card out to him. Pei Yunheng looked down at it. A card from 3 years ago, corners slightly curled, but the writing still crisp and clear.
I know now.
Sun Yanyao's voice was trembling, but every word was bitten off cleanly.
Hengchung is yours.
Ji Heng is your man.
Everything you put down 3 years ago, it was all because of what I said.
Pei Yunheng said nothing.
Why didn't you tell me?
You never asked.
Sun Yanyao's eyes turned red.
I'm asking now.
Pei Yunheng looked at her. 32-year-old Sun Yanyao, standing under the 60-watt fluorescent light of Huo Jinlin's living room, stripped of her flawless makeup and sharp tailoring, her face like porcelain that had shattered and been glued back together, cracks still visible, but holding itself together with everything it had. I'm sorry, she said. When those 2 words squeezed out from between her lips, Pei Yunheng could see her chin trembling. When he insulted you at the family dinner, I laughed. I shouldn't have laughed. It wasn't just the family dinner. Yeah. Sun Yanyao's voice dropped lower and lower until it was barely audible.
Not just the family dinner.
All these 3 years, every single day, Every day you stayed home with our daughter while I was out building my career. I thought it was just what you were supposed to do. Pei Yunheng's fingers tightened around the spatula handle. I thought you cooking, doing laundry, picking Tang Tang up from school. I thought it was all just expected.
I even thought you didn't really have any ambition.
Her hands gripped the seams of her jeans, knuckles turning white. I'm a terrible person. From the kitchen, the rib soup let out a soft gurgle. Huo Jinlin stood at the balcony doorway, watering can in hand, silent. Tang Tang was building blocks on the carpet.
Half the castle had toppled over.
She let out an oops
and started rebuilding. Pei Yunheng was quiet for a long time. Then he said one thing. The ribs are done.
You want some?
Su Nianyao froze.
What?
The ribs are ready. Pei Yunheng turned and walked back into the kitchen, his voice drifting over from the stove. Tang Tang's been asking for ribs since yesterday. I made extra. Su Nianyao stood in the living room, still clutching the business card, feeling like half the strength had been drained from her body. Huo Jinlin walked in from the balcony and paused as she passed her daughter.
Don't just stand there.
Go wash your hands. Su Nianyao looked at her mother. Huo Jinlan's expression was exactly as it always was. No soft warmth of forgiveness, no sharp edge of further scolding. Just a plain, almost everyday tone. Ill set the table. Tang Tang, wash your hands. Grandma, my castle isn't finished. Finish it after you eat. Tang Tang pouted, but obediently went to wash her hands. Su Nianyao followed. She stood at the sink, the tap running, cold water streaming over her fingers. She looked down at her hands. Then she turned, glancing at the silhouette of Pei Yunheng in the kitchen. He was ladling the ribs into a clay pot, his hands slick with sauce. When he spread his palm, she could see the calluses there.
Those calluses.
They weren't worn down by raising a child. They were ground out by signing hundreds of contracts, by pounding negotiation tables more times than she could count. Then they'd been reinforced by 3 years of baby bottles, aprons, and mop handles. Su Nianyao turned off the faucet. She walked to the kitchen doorway. Yunheng.
I want to hold your hand.
Pei Yunheng's movements paused for a beat. He turned around, his hands still wet with sauce. Su Nianyao stepped forward and reached out. When her fingers touched his palm, the texture was rough, like sandpaper.
Like tree bark.
Like a weight shed never once noticed in these 3 years. A heavy price paid, silently. Her fingers tightened around his. Pei Yunheng's hand didn't move, but his fingers, slowly, almost imperceptibly curled inward.
Not a firm grip.
Just a gentle resting touch. Tang Tang came running over, one hand tugging at Pei Yunheng's pant leg, the other clutching Su Nianyao's hem. What are mommy and daddy doing? Holding hands, Pei Yunheng said. Why are you holding hands? Because Pei Yunheng looked down at his daughter, thinking for a moment. Your mommy said she wanted to feel daddy's hand.
I want to feel it too.
Tang Tang slapped both her tiny hands on top, sandwiching them in between. 3 hands stacked together, one big, one medium, one small. Huo Jinlin poked her head out from the dining room. The ribs are getting cold. Pei Yunheng let go, carried the clay pot to the table, and set it down. The 4 of them sat down to eat. Tang Tang took a bite of the ribs, chewed twice, and her eyes lit up.
So good. Daddy makes the best ribs.
Su Nianyao picked up a piece too. She took a bite, chewing slowly. Then she lowered her head, and a tear fell into her bowl. No sound. Pei Yunheng pulled a tissue and handed it over. Don't drip it into the ribs. They'll get salty. Su Nianyao took the tissue, wiped her face, her nose reddening.
Can't you say something nice?
The ribs are good. Is that nice enough? Tang Tang tilted her head, looking at Su Nianyao, then at Pei Yunheng, and finally announced her verdict. Mommy's crying, but mommy's smiling.
Huo Jinlan picked up a piece of rib and dropped it into Tang Tang's bowl.
Eat your food. Then she glanced at Pei Yunheng. He glanced back. The old woman's lips curved into a tiny arc, so small that if you weren't paying attention, you'd miss it entirely. Autumn sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains outside the window, spilling across the dining table, stretching the shadows of 4 people long across the floor. The rib soup was still steaming. Tang Tang had a ring of sauce around her mouth as she raised her spoon. Grandma, is that bad uncle coming back? Huo Jinlin took a sip of soup. No.
Why?
Because people grandma has hit don't dare come a second time. Pei Yunheng nearly choked.
Su Nianyao's chopsticks froze midair.
Tang Tang nodded seriously. Grandma is so awesome. Huo Jinlin took another sip of soup, her expression unchanged. The meal stretched on for a long time, not because there was too much food, 4 dishes and 1 soup, but because every so often, someone would say something, then pause, then take another bite, then say something else. like an old clock whose gears had rusted for 3 years, now starting to turn again, not smoothly, but moving. After dinner, Su Nianyao washed the dishes. Pei Yunheng cleared the table beside her. The two of them stood side by side in the kitchen, the faucet running noisily. Yunheng, about the company, the things Jiheng helped me resolve. Did you arrange that?
Why?
The company is yours. No matter what happens between us, that's your thing. Su Nianyao set a bowl into the sink, soap suds splashing onto her hand.
Do you still want to be with me?
Pei Yunheng's hand stopped on the dishcloth.
He didn't answer right away.
He looked out the window. The autumn sky was so clear it was almost transparent, and a bird flew past outside the balcony. It's not about whether I want to, he said. It's about whether you understand. Being with me isn't being with someone who stays home with the kid, and it isn't being with the boss of an $80 billion group. It's being with Pei Yunheng.
I understand now.
You didn't before.
Before was before.
Su Nianyao's voice dropped low.
Now is now.
Pei Yunheng hung the dishcloth over the faucet. Then let's take it slow. When he said those 4 words, his tone was exactly the same as when Head said the heat's about right while frying eggs, steady plain, but with a layer of warmth underneath.
Su Nianyao's hand clenched under the water.
Okay.
In the living room, Tang Tang's castle was finally finished. She held up the little flag with the spherical dinosaur painted on it, planted it on the highest tower, and announced at the top of her lungs, "The castle is done.
Mommy, Daddy, and Grandma can all move in. Ho Jinlin looked up from the sofa.
The castle only has 1 room. Then Mommy and Daddy share 1 room. Grandma gets 1 room, and I get 1 room. You can't do math."
I can.
1, 2, 3, 3 rooms?
Whoa, Jinlin sighed.
But as the sigh came out, the corners of her mouth were curved upward. The faucet in the kitchen turned off. Pei Yunheng walked out and crouched down in front of Tang Tang. "The castle is pretty good." But he pointed at the flag. "Dinosaurs don't have wings." Tang Tang's eyes went wide.
Dinosaurs can't have wings.
Pterosaurs have wings.
Pterosaurs aren't dinosaurs.
Pterosaurs are dinosaurs.
Fine, fine. Pterosaurs are dinosaurs.
Daddy, you lost. Yeah, Daddy lost. Pei Yunheng ruffled his daughter's hair.
The sunlight outside the window brightened another degree.
He looked up and saw Su Nianyao standing at the kitchen doorway. She was leaning against the doorframe, dish soap suds still on her hands, a few strands of hair loose, her nose still pink.
Not polished.
Not put together. But Pei Yunheng suddenly thought, this version of her was far more beautiful than the one in the little black dress and 8-centimeter stilettos. He stood up. Nianyao wiped Tang Tang's mouth. Shez got rib sauce all over her face. Su Nianyao walked over, crouched down, and took a tissue to wipe Tang Tang's mouth. Tang Tang obediently tilted her face up, cheeks puffed out. "Mommy, are you going to wear high heels again?"
No. Why?
Su Nianyao looked up, meeting Pei Yunheng's eyes. Because flats are steadier, Pei Yunheng's lips twitched.
Not quite a smile.
But close. Less than a millimeter off. And that millimeter, well, it would probably take a rack of ribs, a business card, a 4-year-old's dinosaur castle, and a bottle of flying fairy Mao Tai smashed against the back of someone's skull to close the gap. Ho Jinlan turned a page in her wellness magazine, perched on the sofa. The afternoon news murmured from the television. Reports indicate that Dongsheng Real Estate, under investigation for suspected financial fraud, has been formally placed under case review. Huo Jinlin reached over and pressed mute. Then she went back to her knitting. A red cardigan.
For Tang Tang.
The sleeve was almost done. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.